Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. So the next video of my end of the regular season series in the NHL. Today it's finally about comparing my prediction I had on the channel before the season started to the reality. Me against reality. Yeah, I know I did not do that good in the West. I did quite okay in the East, but we will get to that in details. Because I came up with a point system, I will explain that first, and then let's go into me against the reality. But first, one more thing. You know I'm going to Boston. I'll be flying over there on the 5th of March, and I snatched a ticket for Game 3. Yes! I will be at TD Garden for Game 3, the Bruins and the Carolina Hurricanes. This will be a lot of fun. I really hope so. I hope everything works out. I get a negative COVID test. Everything works with the flight. Everything works with immigration. And then I'll be at Game 3. This will be fantastic. Okay, now the point system. I predicted the divisions, of course, 1 to 8, and I predicted who is going to the playoffs. So, every correct prediction is 5 points. Plus minus 1 is 3 points. Plus minus 2 is 1 point. And predicting a team going into the playoffs correctly or missing the playoffs correctly is another point. So I will explain that as we're going through. So let's start off with the Western Conference. So here we go. Me against reality. How did I do? I have the Western Conference already on this board. I will pause thereafter and make up the Eastern Conference because I have only one board. The standings as I predicted them are on the left. The standings as it turned out in reality are on the right. So let's get it on in the Pacific Division. I predicted the Edmonton Oilers to win the Pacific Division. They ended up second and made it to the playoffs. So that's 3 points for first against that. So minus 1. So that's 3 points for predicting them one spot away from where they ended and 1 point for predicting them correctly into the playoffs. So that's 4 points for me. Vegas, I had them second. They came in fourth. So that's 1 point. And I predicted them into the playoffs. They missed the playoffs, so no bonus points. 1 for me. Vancouver, I had them third. They ended up fifth. 1 point. I predicted them in the playoffs. They didn't make it. I had LA predicted fourth. They ended up third. But I predicted them to miss the playoffs. So only 3 points for minus 1. I had Calgary in at fifth to miss the playoffs. They won the division. No points for me. The Flames really played fantastic. Much better than I expected. Seattle, I had them in at sixth. They ended up eighth outside the playoffs. Plus minus 2 is 1 point. I had San Jose in at seventh outside the playoffs. They came in sixth outside the playoffs. So that's 3 points for me. And Anaheim, I had them at eighth. They ended up at seventh outside the playoffs. Sorry, San Jose is of course not 3, it's 4. For Anaheim as well, it's 4 points. So I scored 18 points in the Pacific. In the Central, I picked Colorado to win the Central Division. This was of course correct. The first check mark, yes. And 6 points, 5 for predicting them correctly and 1 for inside the playoffs. I had Winnipeg in at second. They ended up sixth outside the playoffs, so no points for me with the Jets. I had Chicago in the playoffs at third. They ended up seventh, far outside the playoffs. No points for me. Minnesota, I had them in at fourth to make the playoffs. They ended up second and made the playoffs, so that's 1 point for missing by 2 and 1 for predicting the playoffs correctly. So 2 points. I had Dallas in at fifth and to make the playoffs. They ended up fourth and made the playoffs. So that's 4 points for me. St. Louis. Yeah, I had them sixth and missed the playoffs. They ended up third and made the playoffs. So no points for me here. I had Nashville in at seventh. They ended up at fifth. Made the playoffs. I didn't think so. So only 1 point for me. And Arizona, my second check mark, correctly predicted last in the division. 6 points. So that's altogether 19 points for me in the Central Division. So 18 points for me in the Pacific, 19 in the Central. Let's see how I did in the Eastern Conference. So back now with the Eastern Conference, and yeah, I did a little better there. Let's start off in the Metropolitan Division. Won by Carolina, correct, 6 points. Second were the Rangers, that's also correct, another 6 points. Third were I predicted the Islanders, they ended up 5th and missed the playoffs, so that's only 1 point for me. Fourth, I had Washington to make the playoffs, check mark. Another 6 points. At 5th, I had New Jersey. They ended up 7th and missed the playoffs as predicted. So that's 2. At 6th, I had Pittsburgh. They ended up 3rd. I predicted them out of the playoffs. They were in. So there's the 0. At 7th, I had Philadelphia outside the playoffs. They finished 8th outside the playoffs. So that's 4 points for me. And finally, I had Columbus at 8th. They finished at 6th outside the playoffs. So that's 2 points for me. Sums up to 27. That's not bad compared to I didn't make it to 20 points in both divisions in the Western Conference. That's not bad. Let's see if I did best in the Atlantic. I didn't calculate that prior to the video, so it will be a surprise for me too. Start off Florida first, check mark, 6 points. Second, Toronto, check mark, 6 points. I predicted Tampa to be 3rd, they ended up 3rd, check mark, another 6 points. I predicted Boston 4th, they went 4th, check mark, and another 6 points. That's good. I predicted Ottawa in at 5th. They ended at 7th and missed the playoffs as predicted. So that's 2 points. Montreal, yeah, I predicted them 6th. They ended up last outside the playoffs. That's 2 points too. Detroit, 1 off. I had them 7th. They were 6th outside the playoffs. So that's 4 points. And finally, Buffalo, they ended up 5th. I had them last outside the playoffs. That's 1 point for me at least. So let's sum them up. 24, 30, 33. Wow. That's not bad. So in fact, I did best in predicting the Atlantic Division. Really get 4 teams correct. Yeah, I think that's quite good. The rest a little chaotic, but who cares? My predictions against reality, I think I did not do that bad. Okay, altogether I ended up with 97 points. I will note that for next year and see if I do better or worse next year. We will see. Tomorrow I will do another prediction. Tomorrow you will see my playoff tree. So I will write all the teams on the board and go through and predict every round until to crown a Stanley Cup champion. Prior to the season, I predicted the Winnipeg Jets to win the Cup over the New York Islanders. Interestingly, my mate Nick predicted the Islanders to win the Cup over the Jets, and neither of us knew the other's prediction prior to the season. So we were both totally wrong because both our final picks missed the playoffs. This will not happen this time because now we know who's in the playoffs. And as mentioned, I will do my playoff tree tomorrow here on the channel. Look out for that. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And see you soon with another hockey video tomorrow. Have a good time. Goodbye.